turn your back on family. Even when they do.
The conclusion of the Fast and Furious franchise is upon us, so today let's recap the entire franchise. Our story begins with The Fast and the Furious, released in 2001. The main focus is cop Brian O'Connor, who goes undercover in an underground racing gang, thinking that they may be behind a series of truck hijackings. Thus, he meets leader of an elite racing club, Dominic Toretto, and later joins the racing crew. He begins to date Dom's sister, Mia, and quickly becomes close and well-liked in the crew. Near the end of the film, we find out that Dom really was the person behind the hijackings, leading Brian to reveal his status as a cop to him, which easily angers Dom. But when Dom is attacked by a rival racing gang, Brian jumps in to help and save Dom's life. Brian doesn't arrest Dom and lets him go, ending off the movie. The franchise continues with Too Fast, Too Furious, which released in 2003. We again focused on Brian O'Connor, who was given a deal by familiar cops from the first movie in order to wipe out his criminal record. This task requires him to go again undercover and bring down a drug lord in the underground street business named Carter Verone. Though Brian agrees, he insists that he chooses his own partner, and this partner ends up being a childhood friend of Brian's named Rowan Pierce, who has a criminal record of his own. They both end up being hired as drivers for Verone and meet a woman named Monica, who is also secretly undercover in the gang, but Brian and Roman don't know that. Brian slowly ends up falling in love with Monica, making her the main love interest for the film, but she only ends up returning very briefly in Fast 5. In the climax, Verone finds out that Monica is undercover and kidnaps her. Luckily, in the end, Brian and Roman capture Verone and his gang and rescue Monica from them. Brian and Roman then return home to Miami with plans to open a garage with the money that they pocketed from Verone's drug organization. Okay, I know that this one is technically the fourth movie of the franchise, but the third one is kind of in an odd place, so we'll get to it later. But yeah, Fast and Furious released in 2009. Alright, so Dominic Toretto is back and has created a brand new crew, of course including his wife Letty and his sister Mia. This crew is living in the Dominican Republic, of course doing truck hijackings, but in worry of her safety, Dom leaves Letty to protect her and the crew disbands. Let's just take a moment of silence since Dom's family has just been broken apart.
I don't have friends. I got family.
After a few months, Dom discovers that Letty has been murdered, and understandably he begins to look for her killer. During his search, he runs into good old Brian O'Connor, who is now working in the FBI, looking for yet another drug dealer known as Arturo Braga. Dom and Brian then go undercover and join Braga's gang. While undercover, Dom finds out that Letty was working also undercover with Brian, trying to clear Dom's criminal record before her death. Brian makes a deal with some more familiar cops, saying that if he and Dom get Braga, then Dom's criminal record will be cleared. They end up succeeding in capturing Braga, except for the fact that the Braga they captured was actually a decoy. The real Braga is living it up in Mexico, so Dom and Brian head over there to get him. Braga's henchmen then try to stop them, and a huge action scene occurs. Brian is seriously injured, and Dom kills one of the henchmen named Phoenix. With all the chaos, the cops close in on Brian and Dom, and Brian tells Dom he needs to run. Dom says he's tired of running and ends up turning himself into the cops. He receives 25 years in jail, but as he's being transported to the prison, Brian and Mia lead a team to rescue Dom. Fast 5, released in 2011, picks up immediately where Fast and Furious ended off. Brian and Mia's team successfully rescue Dom from the prison bus and plan to meet up in Rio de Janeiro. While Brian and Mia wait for Dom to arrive, they decide to steal some cars from a train. These cars are owned cars though, one of these being owned by a man named ZZ. Mia decides to steal ZZ's car, and the car contains a computer chip which gives information about the criminal empire of ZZ's boss, Reyes. We are then introduced to diplomatic security services agent Luke Hobbs, played by the one and only Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. He's looking to arrest Dom and Brian for their crimes. Dom decides that he wants the crew to split up and flee Rio and meet back up later, but Mia announces that she is pregnant with Brian's child. With this news, they create a new plan where they will use the information on the computer chip to steal Reyes' money and start a new life as a family.
Salute, mi familia.
Salute.
Dom, Brian, and Mia assemble a new team including Han Lu, Roman Pierce, Tej Parker, Giselle Yashar, Tego Leo, Rico Santos, and Vince. Eventually, Hobbs, his assistant Elena Neves, and his team arrest Dom, Brian, Mia, and Vince. While transporting them to the US, they are attacked by Reyes' team and they kill Hobbs' team and Vince. Dom, Brian, and Mia save Hobbs and Elena and escape. Hobbs and Elena agree to team up with Dom and his crew in order to avenge their murdered team. They break into the police station that has Reyes' money, and with their cars, they just yank off the vault from the building and drag it through the city. Dom attacks the police and Reyes' team and leaves Reyes seriously injured while Brian kills Zizi. Hobbs then arrives and kills Reyes. Though Hobbs doesn't want to let Dom and Brian go free, he also doesn't want to arrest them, so he gives them a 24-hour head start to escape. And in our first post-credit scene of the series, we see Hobbs is given a file by returning character Monica Fuentes about the hijack of a military convoy in Berlin. Upon opening the file, Hobbs finds a recent picture of Letty, Dom's wife, hinting at the fact that she is still very much alive. Fast and Furious 6 released in 2013, and following this successful vault heist, Dom is now living with his new girlfriend, Elena. Yes, this is the same Elena as Hobbs' partner. Brian and Mia live together with their son Jack. Giselle and Han have moved to Hong Kong together, and Roman and Tej are living a life of luxury with all their money. Meanwhile, Hobbs and his new partner Riley Hicks investigate a Russian military convoy that was destroyed by former British Special Forces soldier Owen Shaw and his crew. Hobbs tracks down and finds Dom and gets him to help him take down Owen Shaw after showing him a picture of Letty still alive, a part of Owen Shaw's crew. Dom gets the crew together, leaving Mia and Elena to watch Jack. The crew travels to London and are tricked into a trap by Owen Shaw's crew. Owen escapes in a car and detonates his hideout, injuring many of the police officers, leaving Dom, Brian, Hobbs, Riley, Tej, Han, and Giselle to get him. Letty arrives to help Owen and begins shooting at Dom with no hesitation. When they escape, we find that Letty has amnesia and has been brainwashed into working for Owen. Hobbs tells the crew that Owen is stealing components to create a nightshade device which can disable power in an entire region, and he intends to sell it to the highest bidder. Owen also discovers of the past relationship that Dom and Letty shared. Dom's crew finds out that Owen has a connection to drug lord Arturo Braga, so Brian goes back to the US as a prisoner to gain access to Braga. Braga tells Brian that Letty survived the explosion that was thought to have killed her, and that Owen took her in after learning she has amnesia. Brian then gets help from an old FBI friend to get out of prison. Meanwhile, Dom challenges Letty to a race and returns her necklace that he had kept to remember her. Tej finds out that Owen's next attack is on a NATO base in Spain. Owen's crew attacks here because the base has a computer chip that will be used to complete the nightshade device. Dom's crew steps in to stop this, and a huge fight ensues with tanks between Dom's crew and Owen's men along with Letty. Letty is thrown out of a tank, but Dom saves her right before she falls to her death. In the end, Owen and his men are captured, but Owen tells them that he has kidnapped Mia and will kill her unless he and his men are released. They have no choice but to let them go, and Riley joins Owen as she is revealed she was a double agent working with him. Letty chooses to stay with Dom's crew. Owen, Riley, and his men board a huge aircraft, and it begins to travel fast on the runway. Dom, Letty, Brian, and Hobbs get on the aircraft, and Brian saves Mia using a car on the craft. The aircraft tries to take off but is unable to because Han, Giselle, Roman, Tej, Brian, and Mia tether the aircraft to their vehicles. Giselle saves Han from getting shot by one of Owen's henchmen, but in the process falls from the craft to her death herself. Letty kills Riley and escapes with Hobbs, but Dom goes after Owen and his computer chip. Owen ends up being thrown from the aircraft as it explodes, and Dom returns in his car to his crew and gives the computer chip to Hobbs. Later, Dom and his crew return to the US, and Hobbs and Elena arrive to confirm their freedom. Elena also understands that Dom has chosen Letty over her. They end sharing a meal at Dom's house. In a mid-credit scene in Tokyo, we see Han Lu in a car chase. He is hit by another car and his car explodes, killing Han. This scene is actually from Fast and Furious Tokyo Drift, which we'll go over later. We then see the other car's driver, played by Jason Statham, walking away, calling Dom and leaving him a message saying, "You don't know me, you're about to." In Furious 7, we find that this character is Deckard Shaw. Tokyo Drift is kind of like the odd one out in the entire Fast and Furious franchise, mainly because we focus on different characters, but also because it is technically the third movie, but comes way later in the timeline. But yeah, it came out in 2006. We focus upon a character named Sean Boswell, someone who has always felt out of place, so goes to his winnings as a street racer for comfort. Due to this sport being illegal and getting him in trouble with the authorities, he decides to move to Japan to live with his father. He starts to drive in Tokyo, which involves drifting, a driving style he has not heard of before. Due to this, he ends up crashing a lot until he makes a friend named Han Lu, and yes, finally a character we know. But yeah, Han Lu teaches Sean a lot about drifting. There's a Yakuza turf war happening, which Sean attempts to avoid. In the end, Sean is now known as the Drift King in Tokyo, and the final scene has Dom Toretto show up challenging him to a race. I know we kept this one short, but it's not super important in the grand scheme of things. Furious 7, released in 2015, begins with the fact that Owen Shaw had a brother known as Deckard Shaw, who we saw in the Fast and Furious 6 mid-credits scene. He now wants vengeance for the death of his brother. Letty tells Dom that she doesn't feel like the person she used to be, and leaves Dom in an effort to not hurt him any longer, but she still stays in the crew. Shaw breaks into Hobbs' office and begins to hack his computer, gathering information on Dom's crew. Hobbs attempts to arrest him, but a fistfight between the two ensues. Shaw blows up Hobbs' office. Hobbs saves Elena, but he is severely injured in the process. On the computer, we see that Shaw was looking for Han. Dom visits Mia and Brian, and we see that Brian is struggling adjusting to life with his son Jack, who is now old enough to be going to school. Mia is also pregnant with another child, but has not yet told Brian. Dom then listens to the message that Shaw left him in the Fast and Furious 6 post-credits scene. Dom realizes there's trouble and grabs Mia right before a package sets off a bomb, destroying the entire house. Luckily, no one is hurt. Dom meets Hobbs in the hospital, and Hobbs tells him all about who Shaw is. Brian sends Mia and Jack to the Dominican Republic until this situation is figured out. Dom goes to Tokyo to take Han's body for a proper burial. He also meets Sean Boswell, and this is where the end scene of Tokyo Drift comes in play. In California, the crew gathers for Han's funeral. While at the funeral, Shaw attempts to attack Dom, but Dom is rescued by a team of agents led by Mr. Nobody, but Shaw escapes. Mr. Nobody tells Dom, Brian, Tej, Roman, and Letty that a woman named Ramsey has created a device called the God's Eye that can track anyone in the world, meaning they can find Shaw. Unfortunately, Ramsey was captured by terrorist leader Mose Jaconde, and so they must save her. Dom and his crew agree and then go to the Middle East, where they rescue Ramsey and eventually get the God's Eye. Using the God's Eye, they find that Shaw is hiding in an abandoned warehouse nearby. They go there but see that he has gotten a lot of backup from Jaconde. The team escapes, but Mr. Nobody gets shot in the process. Mr. Nobody calls for medical assistance and tells Dom that he's not going to help them anymore. Dom and the crew decide that they need to end Shaw once and for all, so they decide to take the fight back to Los Angeles. Brian calls Mia and tells her he loves her in case he doesn't come back, and she finally tells him that she is having a baby girl, so he promises that he will come back. Roman and Tej take Ramsey and try to hack into God's Eye so that Jaconde won't be able to track down Ramsey. Meanwhile, Dom lures Shaw to a parking lot where they have a crazy final showdown. Jaconde in an armored helicopter ends up sending a drone to find Ramsey. With all the chaos, they end up shooting down an electrical tower, which gets the attention of good old Agent Luke Hobbs, who rips off his cast to join the fight. Ramsey ends up with Letty, and the drone begins to chase them until Hobbs destroys it by crashing into it with an ambulance. The crew succeeds in hacking into God's Eye, so Jaconde is very angry. He shoots a missile at the parking lot Dom and Shaw are fighting at, which causes the ground beneath Shaw to break, causing him to fall through the loft. Dom gets in his car and gets close enough to Jaconde's helicopter to place grenades on it. Hobbs shoots at the grenades, killing Jaconde. Letty and Brian pull Dom out of the car, who is unconscious. Letty begins to cry but tells him that she remembers they got married in the Dominican Republic. Dom wakes up and he and Letty kiss, signaling they are back together. Shaw ends up being locked in a high-secured prison, but swears that he will get out. In the aftermath, Dom and his crew watch Brian and Mia playing with Jack on the beach. Ramsey asks Dom if he's going to say goodbye, to which Dom responds, "It's never goodbye." Dom gets in his car only for Brian to quickly catch up with him. They share a smile, and Dom says that they both live life at a quarter mile, and that's why they were brothers. They both drive away and go their separate ways at a fork in the road, ending the film. And for anyone who doesn't know, unfortunately the actor Brian O'Connor, Paul Walker, tragically passed away in a car accident in 2013, making this last scene so impactful to the franchise. Rest in peace to Paul Walker.
It's been a long day without you, my friend, and I'll tell you all about it when I see you again. We've come a long way from where we began. Oh, I'll tell you all about it when I see you again. When I see you again.
The Fate of the Furious released in 2017, which is 6 years ago, by the way. Crazy, time flies. But yeah, Dom and Letty are enjoying their honeymoon in Havana when Dom is challenged to a street race at an auto show by local racer Fernando, who is owed money for a car from Dom's cousin. One of Fernando's thugs manages to position his motorcycle in the racing path and crashes into Dom's car, damaging the engine, causing it to slow down. Shortly after the encounter, Dom and his team, comprising Letty, Roman Pierce, Tej Parker, and Ramsey, are recruited by Hobbs to help him retrieve an EMP device from a military outpost in Berlin. During the getaway, Dom goes rogue, forcing Hobbs off the road and stealing the device on Cypher's behalf, while Hobbs is arrested by German police and locked up in the same high-security prison he helped imprison Deckard Shaw in. Nobody and his protege, Little Nobody, who recruit Deckard to help Hobbs and the team find Dom and capture Cypher. Deckard reveals that Cypher was the mastermind of previous encounters with the team, such as employing his brother Owen Shaw to steal the Nightshade device in Europe and orchestrating the attempted theft of the God's Eye, Ramsey's software program. It's later revealed the mysterious woman Dom met with in New York is Magdalene Shaw, Deckard and Owen's mother. Yeah, there's a lot of Shaws in this franchise. Once Deckard reports that Marcos is safe, Dom turns on Cypher and kills Rhodes, avenging Elena's death before rejoining his team. Elsewhere, after finding herself confronted by Deckard at gunpoint, Cypher escapes by parachuting out of the plane while Deckard manages to rescue Dom's son just in time. Mr. Nobody and Little Nobody report that Cypher is still on the loose in New York City. Hobbs says no to his DSS job to be with his daughter, and Deckard returns Dom's son, making peace with the group and becoming part of their family. Dom names his son Brian after his friend Brian O'Connor and celebrates with a barbecue. Fast and Furious presents Hobbs and Shaw, released in 2019, is the first kind of like spin-off movie of this franchise. It begins in London with MI6 retrieving a virus but failing to defeat Brixton Lore. Hattie, Hobbs' unknown daughter, infects herself with the virus, evades Brixton, and is wrongly accused on air. Hobbs and Shaw begin their day in LA and London, hitting nightclubs to battle goons and gather intel about a virus from terrorist group Etion. Their crew resists, causing Hobbs to tattoo love cops on his forehead and Shaw to hang a henchman from a window. CIA agent Locke surprises Hobbs during breakfast and informs him about the snowflake. Hobbs agrees to assist. Shaw visits his mother in jail. She urges him to call Hattie. Agent Loab, sorry, these names are kind of weird, assigns him to go after Snowflake, prompting collaboration with Hobbs. Initially reluctant, they eventually join forces to track down Hattie with other agents' assistance. Shaw infiltrated her hideout while Hobbs confronted her on the streets. Agents chase Shaw and Hattie, but Hobbs hands over Hattie to the CIA. Brixton attacks after Shaw confesses about the virus. Brixton, an old colleague of Shaw's who he thought he killed, runs with Hattie and is chased by Hobbs and Shaw. While Shaw fights Brixton and is overpowered, Hobbs teams up with Hattie. Shaw rescues Hobbs and Hattie in an exciting chase on motorcycles. They escaped after he crashes a bus. Etion labels them outlaws, while Hattie seeks help removing the virus from Professor Andrico, with Hobbs tracking him down at a newsstand. Brixton and Etion hire Hobbs and Shaw, who go undercover to Moscow with Hattie. Hobbs almost caught Mike Oxmal. Shaw advises against contact with Hattie on flight. Hobbs jokes about Shaw's sister, Dinkley, misunderstands and shares his card, and the group meets with Madame M in Moscow. Margarita takes Hattie to Etion for delivery, while Hobbs and Shaw triumph over goons and infiltrate. They're captured, electrocuted, but Hobbs and Shaw escape, destroy, and seize the device. Brixton kills Andrico and escapes, while Shaw and Hattie visit their mother with a cake that could help her escape. Locke calls Hobbs during the credits, battling Etion agents and killing one with a brick. Hobbs pranks Shaw with police calling him Hugh Janus, but Shaw remains strong. F9 The Fast Saga is the most recent movie of the franchise and was released in 2021. In 1989, Jack Toretto, Dom's father, was killed in an automobile race. A week later, Dom, who was arrested for brutally attacking Kenny Linder, confronts his brother Jacob and demands that if he wins, Jacob is to leave town and never return. The film jumps to 2019, 2 years after Dom and his team took on the cyber terrorist Cypher, and Dom agrees to help save Mr. Nobody's plane from crash in Central America. Dom's team searches for the plane, finds a device named Project Ares, and is ambushed by a private army led by Jacob. Dom's sister Mia arrives to help, and Letty and Mia decide to go to Tokyo to learn more. Jacob meets with Otto, his business partner and financier, to plan their next step in stealing the other half of Project Ares. Meanwhile, Dom continues his search for his brother. Letty and Mia find Hans still alive in Tokyo, and Roman and Ted recruit Sean Boswell, Twinkie, and Earl Who to assist them in creating a rocket car. So I guess Tokyo Drift was kind of important here. Dom meets with Quinny, Magdalene, L. Manson Shaw, super long name there, sorry, and confronts Otto and his brother. Tej, Roman, and Ramsey meet up with Dom in Edinburgh, and Jacob uses a huge electromagnet to steal the other half of Project Ares. Ramsey accidentally turns on the electromagnet and disarms Otto's men, guarding Roman and Tej, and Dom chases after Jacob, who is ziplining through the city. Jacob reveals that Otto attacked the safe house and freed him. Jacob and Otto kidnapped Elle and took the other half of Project Ares, but Dom's team used the electromagnet to escape. Dom's team pulls together to stop Otto and Jacob. Dom uses their street racing skills to stop the terrorists. Mia and Han work to breach the truck. Otto betrays Jacob. Dom and Mia save Jacob. Tej and Roman reach the International Space Station, and Roman returns safely to Earth. Letty and Dom return to Dom's family home in Los Angeles, where they have a barbecue dinner. During the credits, Deckard Shaw is seen working out with a punching bag and meets Otto, who provides information to Deckard. Oh hey, while you're here, feel free to enjoy the 2 videos that show up on your screen right now. Alright, see ya.